Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome in. Today we're talking about transmissions in Farming Simulator 22. We're going to look at all the different types. We're going to talk about how to use them, and I'll give you a heads up on how I've got mine set up, and maybe you can use those for yourself. Let's get to work on this. Pitter patter. All right, well, thanks for joining me, folks. And of course, don't forget, for the lighter side of farms, it may be a little bit more crazy, the fun side, the absolute nut side. Make sure you guys check out our live streams, and of course come join us for some of our roleplay videos where we test everything out just to the ultimate extreme in farm sim. But today we're looking at transmissions, and I'll give you a heads up on how to use all these things and what your options are going to be. Now, before we even dive into this, of course, you're going to need to select your gear shift mode. Standard, of course, comes in as automatic, but you have options to select manual as well, manual with clutch. That's right, you gotta have it with the clutch, right? Something about clutch coming in clutch. I don't know. So let's start off by talking about the most common transmission you're going to find in Farm Sim 22. This is on the Massey Ferguson 5S, and this is the CVT variable transmission. This is the one that's probably the easiest to use, and it's the most common. It's basically an automatic transmission. I don't need to use the clutch. I don't even need to shift for that matter. All I have to do is step on the accelerator and we're going to be moving along. Once again, I hit the brakes. We come to a stop. If I have stop and go braking on, I'd have to push it again, but I do not, so it will automatically go in reverse. And there you have it. Forward and reverse simply by pushing your accelerator or pushing on your brake. That's all there is to it. Next up, let's start talking about manual transmissions we will find on some older equipment, older trucks, and pretty much all trucks for that matter. Let's fire up the pickup here. Give the clutch a push and fire it up. There you go. So we're in first gear, and this of course behaves just like any normal manual transmission you may have seen. I've got to push the clutch in between gear shifts. If you didn't have a clutch, you could just simply shift. If I don't do that with this mode, you're going to see I get a warning saying, hey, dummy, push in the clutch. You have that selected. So there we go. That's all there is to it. And you can see in the bottom right hand corner as we progress through the gears all the way up into 6. Now, also note that with all these transmissions, guys, this is one interesting thing from Farm Sim. They could start in the highest gear for the most part. I'm in 6th gear, drop that clutch, and away we go. Now, if I don't feather the clutch, of course, just like in real life, it's going to give you grief and might stall. See if we can get it going here in 6th gear, feather it, there we go, no problem. Most of the equipment will not have a problem with that. Just be aware that if you're pulling something that's heavy, well, you may stall it out just like I did. Now, let's make things a little bit more complex. We're up on the Max Superliner, and of course, this has 17 gears, I believe it's 17. So the gear shifter I'm using only has a 6-speed. Once again, we can use that all the way up to 6-speed as normal, but then we're kind of stuck. So I've had to map this a little bit differently. Depending on your setup, you may change this. If you have a splitter, a button you can activate as a splitter to get up into higher groups, that may be the perfect option for this. I don't have that as an option, unfortunately. So how do I get up into those higher groups? Well, instead, I'm going to switch over to my paddles. So from here, I can use the paddles and simply shift up. Now I'm going to go up a little bit quicker. I'm going to go up to say 12 there, get it rolling, push that clutch in, and just keep on shifting a couple gears at a time as I shift up. Unfortunately, I still need to push that clutch in between shifting. I can't just shift up. It's not like that. There we go. Get up to 17th gear, and now I'm good to go. Luckily with this truck here, I can kind of go pretty slow without it stalling out. So just be aware. You have to use paddle shifters most likely, unless you have some way of configuring your buttons to use all 17 gears. Now the same goes for the reverse on this. We can put this into reverse, but we have multiple gears in that range. So I simply select into the reverse range, and then from there I can use the paddles to shift between those gears. There we go, something like that. It's once again not exactly intuitive, but there is a way to make that work. Next up, we got power shift with manual, or manual with power shift. I'm not sure. Anyways, just be aware, these are interesting because they're not the same on all tractors. Just because it says manual power shift, they all kind of behave a little bit differently. I'll show you two variations here. We got the 7810. Let's jump in that. So on this particular John Deere, the easiest way to describe this is you're going to have different groups or ranges, and each range has gears inside of it. So for example, we've got 5 ranges, A, B, C, D, and E on this tractor, and each range has 4 gears, 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple as that. So we're in range, what is it, C right now? Let's put that down into range A, and I'll put the gear up into gear 1. There's gear 2, and you can see that one there is shifting through our gears all the way up to 4. So in range A, gear 1, I'll drop the clutch here. That is our slowest possible speed right there. That is the most torque, slowest speed. You guys get it. Now I can shift between those gears. You can see I'm just shifting up to 3rd and then down to 4th. And in range A, gear 4, this is our fastest speed in this particular range. Now, in order for me to change the range, I do need to push the clutch in. The gears, you don't need to on this one, but the range you do. So to get up from A to B, I push in my clutch, drops it over to the next range, and then I'm in range B, gear 4, and so on as we kind of climb through these. I'll push it all the way up to E, and there we go. That's the highest speed right here, the highest range, I guess. Range E, gear 4. Once again, I can shift between those gears in the range without pushing in the clutch, but I can't shift the range down to go down to, for instance, D. I try to click that. Yeah, you got to push the clutch to do that. So get our speed up if I wanted to shift down a range, push in the clutch, and then we're good to go. So just be aware of that. That is the way the 7810 works. However, this Massey 4710 is kind of the opposite. I have to push in the clutch between the gears, as you can see here. However, to go between the high and low range, I can just do it. I can just push the button and it shifts between the high and low range, but the gears I need to shift. Now, of course, like I said, if you're not using a clutch, none of that matters. You can do what you need to do. Just put it in that gear, push the accelerator, and you're good to go. But if you're using a clutch, just be aware that there's some differences on when the clutch is activated and when it's not, and what you can do with when. Kind of an interesting concept. And now for our last transmission, which is, I think, only on this tractor, is the automatic on the Iseki. Not sure if anyone else has this off the top of my head, but it's definitely the least common type of transmission. It's an automatic transmission, not quite like the variable CVT we talked about earlier. This one here, you can see we've got gears. We're in the high range. Let's put this down into the low range, and we're in the forward driving gear. We'll let out the clutch, and now it's just going to automatically shift between those gears. In fact, we can watch as it does that. Now I'm going to go up to the mid range. I have to push the clutch in to do this. Up to the mid range, and now you can watch as it shifts through those gears. And same thing if we get up to the high range. It's going to do it once again, and it's going to automatically shift through those gears for us. Not sure why they chose to do that. That seems like it's still... We should be doing the shifting in my mind on this one. Anyways, I digress. Just be aware, this one is an automatic transmission. You still need to push in the clutch to shift between the different ranges, or if you're using just a manual without clutch, you will still need to change the ranges. Just be aware it's a little bit weird that way. So that's all the transmissions. Let's talk about how I have my controls set up right now, at least. Of course, if you guys have any better control ideas set up, let me know in the comments down below. I haven't mastered the control setup that I like yet. I'm still tweaking this and finding new ways to do this. But let me know down in the comments. Now, if you're on keyboard, of course, you can select gears on your keyboard if you want to. There's ways of doing this. You can even select a clutch if you want to try and figure that out. I can't imagine it working that well, but give it a shot if you want. Let me know. We're over on our gamepad controls, of course, and we're using a wheel with shifter. We're using the G29, Logitech G29, along with the shifters, so that's why it's allowing us to do this. Now, we do have our group set up, or our gears set up. We don't have groups set up. Like I said, I'm using the paddles, or there's some buttons to shift between the groups, so shift group up and down. You can see I've got buttons on the wheel assigned to shift my groups. Now, as far as gears, of course, we have all our gears up to gear 6 on the shifter setup. Now, gear 7 and 8, of course, we don't have those available on the shifter. So for transmissions where we need to get past that, I unfortunately do need to go and use the paddles. That's right here. We have 2 paddles right here. That's able to shift up and shift down with those to get us above gear 6. Now, as well, I have buttons down here for selecting forward and reverse directions if we need to. Now, this one here is just simply the first gear. That's what that is. That's the forward direction. So, for instance, on the automatic or anything where I need to go from reverse or neutral into first, or into the forward driving direction, I use just the first gear. To go in the backwards, there is the backwards direction on the shifter itself. Just so you know, that's what I have here. This was just automatically set up on my gamepad. I don't use the change direction one at all. Just be aware of that. So we have all the different gears. The clutch, of course, is our clutch on our pedals. And then shifting groups, I have just assigned to 2 different buttons on the wheel itself, so that we can select between. Actually, it's over here. L2 and L3 is the group for that. I don't have buttons assigned for each individual group. It's something we could potentially think about doing. Might make life a little bit easier. I think using the paddles is just, or the buttons on the wheel are just fine. So that's how I have it set up. Like I said, if you have a way of doing it that works better for you, let me know down in the comments. I'm not quite sure if this is the best or not, but it's working so far. So there you folks have it. That is how you use a manual transmission in Farm Sim 22. Brand new feature to the series, of course, in base game. And you know what, considering the amount of different transmissions they have out there, I understand why they did it the way they did. Some of it's a bit finicky, but it does work, and you can learn to get it down pat when you get used to your equipment for sure. So That's how you do it, at least how I've got it done. Like I said, let me know in the comments if you have a different setup. Love to hear from you guys there. Thanks for joining me once again. Of course, if you want to see more tutorials, more Farm Sim 22 content, make sure you hit the subscription button. Of course, come join us in a live stream or one of our roleplay series stuff as well. Would love to see you guys there. Other than that, folks, have a fantastic day. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers, folks.